Patrick, nice to see you.
It's great to be back with you.
Well, you've got a new office, and I can't help but notice over your right shoulder you have positioned the Green Bay Packer helmet. Any reason?
You're here.
All right,
you know, actually, I had my Paul Hornung, Vince Lombardi poster right outside of your camera shot, though. So we got a lot of Packer paraphernalia here.
I bet, especially after 2 weeks ago. All right, speaking of Wisconsin, there's a lot of activity back in our home state in Madison, protests. They've been sent out for the Democratic members of the Assembly or the Senate to come vote. What are your thoughts about what's going on?
Our governor, Scott Walker, is trying to fix these problems before they get out of control. If we want to have jobs in Wisconsin, if we want to have a good business climate, we have to get it at the runaway spending. We are broke in Wisconsin. You know, same kind of problems we have in Washington. So he's trying to go at the drivers of our government spending, and that is our public employees have benefit packages far in excess what their private sector counterparts have. And what he's asking for are contributions about half of the private sector average. Actually, their health care contributions would be half of what the federal workers pay.
Isn't, though, the fact that they're protests sort of instructive to us, and that maybe it'd be a good idea sort of like to cut everybody across the board, whether it's here in Washington in budget, just take a number, 10%, everyone loses 10% or whatever. This sort of picking and choosing is what pits everybody against everybody, and special interest against special interest. Everyone's got a special program.
There's a point to that, but also some programs have gotten really big plus-ups, meaning huge spending increases. So if you want to go, for instance, in Wisconsin across the board, but the public employees have not been contributing hardly anything at all to their pension or to their health care benefits, but everybody else in Wisconsin is doing that, across the board isn't that fair. Here in Washington, we're looking at government spending programs that got double and triple digit spending increases, but some programs didn't.
In what
so
period
is
of time?
across the board fair to those programs? Over just the last 2 years.
Well, what if we were to go back like 2 years? I mean, I'm just picking that number and say, okay, we'll go back to the numbers of 2 years.
That's what we're doing right now.
And everyone loses. Everyone gets cut a certain percentage. Everyone's going to squawk and complain.
Right. So what happened? President Obama raised domestic discretionary spending. That's spending on government agency budgets 24% over the last 2 years. He threw the stimulus on top, and that's an 84% increase in government agency budgets. And we're trying to pull that back. We want to go back 24% lower, so we go back to where spending was pre-bailout, pre-binge levels for the rest of this fiscal year. That's exactly what we're doing on the floor today in Congress.
You've said that you're disappointed in President Obama, and in fact, even deeply disappointed. Okay, and even the Washington Post has gone after his budget, saying that they're gimmicks in his budget. Why do you think he has his budget as it is?
It's a good point. Good question. There's two schools of thought on this. One is that he dislikes the government he's got right now, and he wants to hang on to the gains he's gotten over the last 2 years. Two.
That's the bad motive, right?
I'm not going to subscribe motives, but that's the theory here. The other one is he just chose not to lead on getting this debt and deficit under control, and he's going to wait for Republicans to do something and then beat us up if and when we do that. I don't really care what his motive is. What I don't like is the result. He gave us a budget that raises taxes $1.6 trillion, adds $13 trillion to the debt. He leaves office with the debt and deficit far worse than when he got it. More debt will accumulate under his presidency than all prior presidents combined. The problem, Greta, is if we don't get this deficit and debt under control, it really hurts our economy and job creation. Deficit reduction, debt reduction means job creation, because every time you run a big deficit like we are now, that just means more tax increases and interest rate increases tomorrow. So where he has failed to lead, where he's fallen down on leading on this, I mean, even the Washington Post said he punted and he ducked from his responsibilities. We're going to do that. We're going to provide the leadership, and we're going to show the country how we think we ought to deal with this out-of-control spending, how we ought to deal with this deficit and debt so we can get prosperity and job creation back in this country.
All right. When you do your budgets come spring,
in the spring, right.
Social Security, some of my viewers are very upset when it's referred to as entitlement. They say, well, we paid into it. It's hardly entitlement. Right. It's, it's my money, is the theory. What do you intend to do about Social Security in your budget?
Well, Social Security is really not a big driver of our debt problems. It's the health care entitlement programs that are the big drivers of our debt problems. Social Security in and of itself is going insolvent, and so something has to be done to make it solvent. There is not a plan in Congress that anybody has introduced that I know of that cuts Social Security benefits for anybody in and near retirement. So if anything is even done to make Social Security more solvent, it will not affect people over the age of 55. It will not affect people who are in and near retirement who already organized their lives around these programs, who have already retired. The question is, are we going to do things to these entitlement programs to prevent them from going bankrupt, so people in the younger generations like you and I actually have a program we can count on? But Social Security is not really a big driver of our debt. It's the other programs that are the big drivers of our debt.
Well, if health care is one of them, then I guess it really does make a difference for the Supreme Court to get off the bench and make a decision one way or the other, so that planning can be done accordingly, whether it's constitutional or not, so that efforts can be made to sort of to figure out the budget to meet our demands, our nation's demands.
If we don't get this debt under control, according to the General Accountability Office, we go about $10 trillion deeper in the hole. Every year we delay fixing this problem. They're telling us our unfunded liabilities, and this is a weird number that no one's really going to put their minds around, but is about $88.6 trillion. $5.3 trillion of that is Social Security. The rest is all these other entitlements, the health care entitlements. So what we know is the next generation will get a diminished country, lower living standards, if we don't fix this. And if we don't get this under control right now, our economy is going to suffer. If we fix these problems now, we can prevent pain, problems from hitting people who are already retired, who have enjoyed these programs. So in order to save these programs and make them solvent, you got to reform them. And in order to get the debt and the deficit under control, you got to reform these entitlement programs, and that's the best way to help the economy today and give our kids and our grandkids a better future.